Jefferson Robbins with NCW Life. It's been about a month and a half since the murders that transfixed the Wenatchee Valley. Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia Decker were taken from their family. Their bodies were found on June 2nd. A lot of local police agencies and national law enforcement have been involved in the search for the suspect, their father, Travis Decker, ever since then. One lead local agency is the Chelan County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Mike Morrison joins me now. Sheriff, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. We wanted to sort of take stock and evaluate as we get to this month and a half point since the death of the girls. Mr. Decker has been on the run, or unaccounted for at least, since at least June 2nd. A lot of the early focus, a lot of the early searching happened in the wilderness areas around the area of the campsite where the girls' bodies were discovered, leading up into the encampments from there. What evidence suggested to your agencies at the time that Mr. Decker might have fled into the wilderness and that he might be preparing to stay there for a long time?
Well, just based off what we found when we were doing follow-ups, talking with family and friends, that we knew that he was familiar with the area. It's not the first time he'd been up there. And at times he had been out in wilderness settings like that for up to 2.5 months is what we were being told. So we knew that he had the history and the past and the capabilities of staying out there for a while. And then of course, when we did our initial response to the scene, of course we found the scene, then we brought our SWAT team out to secure it. And in the search of the area surrounding it, we weren't locating him. So we knew there was a possibility that he either left or that he had taken off on foot. So we were trying to follow up on that. And then of course, we got more sightings. One, of course, the most notable is we were doing our air searches, that we did see a subject who appeared to be making active efforts to avoid us. So that kind of led our attention to, let's search here. We did get our team back because unfortunately we had to refuel at that time. We did get the team back on the ground. They did a track. It led back down into the Icicle Creek area. And then we continued to expand out there just based off of sightings. But we knew that the area where he was at was where we were going to start focusing. And then if we got additional information, which we did get more and more back just based off his previous travel and activities over the weeks before the event came up, it just led us to continue to expand out. And of course, as we talked about, as we got more tips, that did direct us towards areas we wanted to look at.
The Icicle Creek neighborhoods were kind of on pins and needles for a while as that search went on, and the search moved a little bit south and west into Kittitas County from there. And I assume you were working on similar reports, similar possible sightings in the Red Top area. Is that correct?
Correct. I know Sheriff Myers and his team, we really appreciate them stepping up. They went above and beyond to help us out. They have certainly been integral to our investigation and to our efforts in the beginning part of it, but they really kicked in towards the end there. And we got that report that there was individuals who said, hey, we talked with him, we talked to Travis Decker, this is him for sure, that they followed up on it. It did not materialize to be Mr. Decker as was initially reported, but they continued to follow up on other things they had found as they were in that area around Liberty. And then we also were able to send some stuff that we found at certain sites of interest back to Washington State Patrol, thinking, does this match what we have for potential DNA for Travis? And unfortunately it did not, but we're still waiting for more stuff to come back. And hopefully we start getting some more results that work in our favor, because we're just as frustrated, I think, as anyone else that we haven't been able to locate him or get some kind of closure for the family or community.
The initial scene, the initial search site was a makeshift campsite along the Icicle Creek area. There was Mr. Decker's truck discovered there, the bodies of his children, and there was blood or genetic material that was found on the truck. I think it was described later on as being traces of human blood traced to Mr. Decker, also animal blood. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, so we did get the results back. Initially, I think a lot of people were trying to report it as a handprint. It was more like a fingerprint on the back of the truck that did have some blood. When we did send that off to Washington State Patrol, really appreciate Chief Paityn and his staff, the crime lab there, for expediting our request and getting some results back to us quickly that did match DNA samples that we believed to be Mr. Decker's that we were comparing him with. And then the other blood on scene, of course, we've said it had been human, but we'd also like to remind everybody, when we did arrive on scene, his dog was there. We believe there was a potential, most likely it did come from his dog, but nothing outside of the unusual. We just believe it's most likely canine blood from his dog, and the dog was okay. We did hand him over to Humane afterwards, and then we continued on with our investigation. Was the dog found roaming free, or was the dog confined at the site somehow? Roaming free, as I understand it, came up over the riverbank towards us, very friendly, and yeah, we were just glad that he was accounted for. It sounded like it was very important to the family and to Mr. Decker. The area around that campsite, obviously it leads into the greater wilderness, but it's kind of wild itself. The Icicle Creek at that point is raging, running hard. There's lots of boulders. Has that area, has the Icicle Creek drainage itself been searched by water? It has. We had National Park Service that volunteered their swiftwater rescue team. They were in the water for up to 4 days. I talked to them at the end of the first day. I think they'd gone from the crime scene all the way down to Chelan Creek, continued on, and then as we discussed too offline, that next week we'll be going in with the swiftwater rescue team, and I'll be joining in with them as well. And we're going to search it again. We've also had members of our volunteer search and rescue that came out. It was a 30-plus group that did a grid pattern search around the scene just to follow up if we had missed anything. And we'll continue to have drones that have flown the creek, and we've also had our helicopter up there, and there's been a couple spots of interest. When we've sighted something like, hey, we want to check out this area, we've dropped GoPros into the water and searched, and we'll continue to do what we need to, because we understand it's a possibility. Maybe he did get in the water and it's raging hard, because a couple weeks before that, we had that rescue up French Creek, was just individuals trying to wade across the water. Wasn't as deep as where we're at here on the Icicle, and then they were taken out and had some injuries, so we'll continue to search.
You're not the only agency involved, as we said. Marshal Service, FBI, Border Patrol, Homeland Security, lots of agencies. Also, local municipal police departments and sheriff's offices have been involved. So in all of that, has there been a chance to learn more about what Travis Decker's state of mind might have been when he came to pick up his girls on May 30th?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I don't think we'll get the final answer unless Mr. Decker's found and he can explain it better to us. But I mean, we did talk to FBI's forensic psychologists along with U.S. Marshals forensic psychologists. And of course, we tracked through a lot of his online search history. We've talked to family, friends, just to get a better understanding of who this individual is, what he's like, what motivates him, and what kind of things he was facing. You know, what kind of challenges might have motivated him to make the decision that we believe he made at that time. And certainly have learn more about him, but I don't think there's anything that we've really learned that would justify what happened or what's accused or what he's accused of having happened.
Did he leave behind any written materials? A lot of things were found with his truck. Were there any notes?
Nothing of note within the vehicle or on the scene. And again, that's why we're really hoping that we can find him, that he's still alive, and that we can get a better understanding of why. How did we get to this point? Certainly inexplainable. Can't really come up with any reasoning on what would motivate someone to do this, especially to their kids. So we'd like to get a better understanding from him.
Some people in their mindset can be influenced by their social media intake. Do you have any insight, Mike, on what Mr. Decker might have been consuming online in terms of YouTube videos or accounts he might have been following?
From what I'm getting back from the information, I didn't personally go through these scans. I mean, there wasn't anything that would have been telling of why he got to this point. And talking with other individuals who had met him online or knew him personally outside of that, also, this was not in line with what he had been like before.
Have you gotten, well, I know you've gotten a lot of tips over the course of all this, maybe in the hundreds, maybe in the thousands. What's been the range of usefulness of the kind of information people are getting? I mean, have you gotten mostly things that are helpful? This is an idea or a track you should check out. Or have you gotten more things that are just beyond the realm of belief?
Yeah, well, we appreciate everything. I mean, we're not discounting any information that comes in. Of course, others don't quite have a full understanding of the investigation or the situation. I mean, we certainly hear, you guys should be using drones. We have used drones. Or you guys should be flying with FLIR. We have used FLIR. You guys should have tracking dogs, and you should have cadaver dogs. And these are things that we've utilized. And then when we get the reports of sightings, I mean, we're doing our best to follow up. We saw the one here most recently in Idaho. We put a lot of resources in to follow up on that, thanks to the U.S. Marshal Service. We had another one up in Canada. Thanks to the RCMP for coming in and following up on that. We've had some in Montana. The FBI followed up on that. Some down in Texas. I mean, we are taking them seriously. We're doing our best to follow up. And I was even talking about one out there in Tennessee. And it's getting international attention as well. So we are certainly appreciative. We understand that this makes their job a little bit easier when you have a bunch of eyes watching, staying focused on this, and we get, maybe there is an angle that we're not considering, so we do try to follow up on the information that's provided, suggestions. We've reached out to other agencies. I've talked to the former FBI agent who was with the Eric Rudolph case for the '96 Olympic bombing. He's the sheriff out of Walla Walla County. Him and I discussed challenges they had. That search went on for 5 years. I've talked with Dave Reichert, former King County sheriff, and we talked about the Green River killer and some of the challenges they had and how they were using technology and other strategies that evolved from the 80s into the early 2000s on how to get this and what challenges they faced in tracking him and finding Mr. Ridgway eventually. But we're trying our best to think outside the box, look at outside resources, but we're pretty confident with the teams we brought in. You've had U.S. Forest Service, you've had the FBI, U.S. Marshal Service, and you've had U.S. Customs and Border Patrol's tracking team, national parks. And then you start getting Snohomish County, King County, Spokane County. You dropped a lot of resources, assets, knowledge into this, and we'll continue to push and think outside the box to figure out how else can we come up with the results we want to see? But a good effort, I think, to this point, and we haven't given up yet.
So the crime that Mr. Decker is accused of is generally called familicide or family annihilation. And it doesn't happen very often, but it's horrifying when it does. In some of the studies that I've read about this, including one from 2019 in Australia, looked at 104 cases of familicide. The annihilator, the person accused of the crime, attempted or completed suicide in about 79% of those cases. Do you still have reason to believe that Travis Decker is alive, or do you think he's ended his own life?
As I'm looking at it right now, he's unaccounted for. And of course, we recognize there's a strong possibility that he did take his own life. In talking with the U.S. Marshal Service, we pulled up 5 other cases that were similar in the tracks, and they were estimating that usually it's about a quarter of a mile outside of where the scene initially took place. We've made really strong efforts to go and search that area again, but we also recognize too there's a potential that he could be actively still fleeing from us, and that has given him a pretty big area to hide in, and that's why the U.S. Marshal Service has really come up strong. I mean, their technology, their ability, their background in this, and this is their area of expertise and specialty to track people once they get into civilization or outside. And then, of course, we utilize those individuals who are well versed in searching within wooded, tough terrain areas. When you have the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol's tracking team and also U.S. Forest Service out there, and we brought in Kittitas County as well. I shouldn't say we brought them in; they offered their services to us, and they had experience doing a similar search, same area back in 2020. And Sheriff Myers really came out and kind of expressed those areas we did really well at the time and areas we did not do so well. And he brought that expertise and knowledge in, and we're thankful for him coming alongside of us.
Well, a month and a half might be too early to ask this question, but it does seem like a long time. So at what point is the search called off? At what point do you say, we've looked everywhere we can and in every way we can?
Yeah, we're being careful with the resources we have. We understand that taxpayer dollars that come back and fund our agency are limited. So when we do get credible information of areas to search, we're following up on that. But I think the heavier, more intense search effort that you saw in the beginning of this campaign has certainly been brought back a little bit, and now you're seeing more of a directed effort. When we do get information, like Idaho, we're going to deploy resources there. Otherwise, we're going to continue to focus on the investigative side, make sure the case is ready for trial, and that if we do have other information we want to follow up on, or like, hey, let's recheck this, like we had with the initial crime scene where we brought the search and rescue team with the volunteers back to work with marshals and our deputies to research. Those are things that we will continue to follow up on and do. But I feel like we're headed in the right direction with the criminal investigation. Thanks to Sergeant Lewis, Chief Moody oversees operations of really coordinating this, and then the detectives who have just been dumping their heart and soul into this case to ensure we are presenting the best case forward when we do go to trial.
A lot of agencies were looking for Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia after they were declared to be missing on about May 30th. It was your people who found them on June 2nd. Who found their bodies. It's been your people who have been, I think, night and day on this case locally ever since. Given the amount of effort and given the amount of time that's passed, how is morale doing in your department? How are your people doing with this case?
Yeah, well, first I want to back up a little bit and say Chief Reinfeld, Wenatchee Police Department, they've done an excellent job. Especially, I'd give Detective Hewitt a lot of credit. If it hadn't been for his work that he put in over the weekend to give us information on the following Monday, like kind of more of a general area to search, we would have been looking through 2,900 square miles of a county. So he really gets a lot of credit for putting us on the right path to search. And of course, Deputy McLeod, just being well versed in our Forest Service area. When you get back in the federal land, especially up the Icicle, he had a general idea where he knew or he believed that individual was going to be, went there, checked it out, so I appreciate that. But when you look at just the overall effort that our deputies who've been answering the calls still, we've been doing the majority of the investigation, and our detectives, they've been running hard. And we talked about bringing in CISM support, so crisis intervention stress management, peer support members, and also psychologists, thanks to the Washington State Patrol providing theirs. We also brought ours in, and making sure that we're providing means for our deputies to be able to decompress mentally, and then also encourage them to take care of themselves physically, getting those workouts in. That's something we've been focusing on because our agency has been going hard for a long time. We're a medium-sized agency. We do have a lot of dedicated men and women, but you can't expect them to go full throttle for that long and there not be any kind of burnout. That's why you saw a pullback from us after about 2 weeks where we said, hey, we're going to transition our efforts more over to other partners so they can continue on. And I've referenced like what we do for fires. Typically, you'll see a fire team on the ground for 2 weeks, and that's because you're asking a lot for those individuals during that 2-week period, and you can't expect them to continue performing at a high level for a prolonged period of time. So we've been cognizant of that, but the men and women of this agency have done exactly what I expected them to do. They stepped up, they're professional, they handled calls, and they took really a horrible situation that has rocked a community and a family, but also rocked our agency, and continue to stay the course. And I think really led up to our core values. They still maintain integrity and teamwork and excellence, and that's what we wanted to see. And that's what I would have expected from the men and women, because when the job called, they did what needed to be done.
What are the chances, Mike? I mean, if you were laying odds, what are the chances of finding Travis Decker?
I still feel it's high, because we have individuals that not only from our agencies, but we're a very high tourist populated area when you come during the summertime. So we know a lot of individuals are out there, and you also get into hunting season. We know there's a possibility that come up. One of the cases I talked with, former Sheriff Reichert, he had talked about an employee from Weyerhaeuser being out in more of the backwoods where it's not very well traveled, planting trees, and comes along a random bone sitting on top of a stump, and it's got some bite marks from what appeared to be a cougar later on. And it just happened to be a random cougar found a bone from one of the victims of the Green River Killer, dragged it to a stump, and it just takes little breaks like that for us to be able to maybe get some closure on this case. So we're still optimistic. We know that we have a daunting challenge ahead of us, but I do believe that we can get closure for this case. It may not be in the next couple of months, it might be in the next couple of years, but I mean, eventually time should work in our favor, and we're hoping that we'll get that break.
Well, Sheriff Mike Morrison, I know that the community appreciates what your agency and your peer agencies have been doing in this very difficult case, and we appreciate you being here today.
No, appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
You're watching the NCW Life channel.